I've got one to show. The idea is to show everybody that there is multiple different ways to accomplish the same task. This guy is just a flat one, which every once in a while it's handy to have one of these around. This was actually made for a special mount to do the merging bowl that I did. When I got done with it, I didn't need it anymore for that, so I just took a piece of the self-adhesive foam and glued on there, and it works perfect. You don't have to worry about your edge or how big your deal is. Works really good for really small stuff. You just set it on there and it'll set right there. You just have to be careful when you're using a vacuum chuck. The smaller it is, the less hold you have. And it goes away quick when it gets small. It is exponentially stronger as it gets bigger, but when it's small, be really cautious. That little guy is actually pretty handy. Kind of ugly, but it works good. These are the ones that I've done. I used hard maple, because everybody talks about the wood moving and causing them to warp and stuff. So I used hard maple. I glued 2 sheets of it together and then threaded the bottoms of them with a bill. And I had to cut a recess. And the reason for that is to go around this shoulder that's right there on your lathe. And then a seal is on this surface here. I don't put a rubber on it or anything, but it just, as long as I have it where I can get past that first shoulder, it seals up just fine. One thing I will tell you, once in a while these can get stuck on there and you can't get them off. Don't have anything to do. And where's that? There it is. My secret gift for getting them off is a filter wrench. Works great. Just put that around on there, lock your lathe, and you can pop them right off there. That is worth its weight in gold if you get them stuck on your lathe and you can't get the darn thing off. Because there's no holes or anything in it. I didn't do anything like that to put a wrench in it. So a filter wrench is a great thing to keep in your lathe stuff. One thing that I learned last week over at Dennis's when we did the what do you call it?
Open shop.
Open shop was rubber chucky. This is a cone for a one-way style life center. The rubber chucky has a seal that they sell to put on this, and then they sell what do you call a spindle adapter? Is that what you call it? With a hole in it, you can use that as a vacuum chuck, which I thought was really awesome. I'm probably going to end up giving some of my money to rubber chucky and get one of those, because that ought to run true. Have you used yours very much?
I've used it. I mean, it's not an everyday thing, but I mean, I've used it.
Does it run absolutely true?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was
because you
thinking.
get the number 2 Morris taper that threads under that.
Mm-hmm.
Then when you pop it into the headstock, it's dead on.
So I thought that was really neat. And if anybody doesn't know what the one-way live center is, it's just one way, and what is it? Robust. Theirs is this way too in it. It's this style of that has 3/4 by 10 threads on it. And this guy would screw on here, but they have a different, so it's got a hole through it. This one's for my tailstock, so it wouldn't hurt. But I thought that was neat, that you can use that as a vacuum chuck. Didn't know that until I went to that open house. One of the big issues is, okay, I'm using this thing and I decided it's time to mount it and I want to turn it around. So I've been using this, you know, standard lathe stuff. We're turning it on a bolt. We want to turn it around. How do you get it so it's straight? There's several different knacks to do that. Your basic, you can grab one of those, it'll be about the right size. See, these guys just thread right on here. Now, I don't know how to work on this one, but
So you cut that with the bill system, and then you chuck it up, and then turn it so it's true.
yep. That's a bill tap. If anybody's got their own threads and stuff, I've actually got marked on here 1 1/8 inches. So I just turn this on the lathe and then drill that hole with on the drill press and thread it, then put it back on here so then I can get it true. And then I cut a groove in it. It'll fit. This is Series 40 PVC pipe is all that this is. And you don't get the sewer and what do they call it? S&D, I think, sewer and drain. Don't get it. Use the Series 40, it's thicker. And just cut a groove in there, and then I put it in with epoxy. It's epoxied in to glue it in. This is, I call it funky foam. There's different names for it. It's just craft foam. This thing's even my way, I'm short. And you can get it at Hobby Lobby. This one happens to be self-adhesive. It's got adhesive on the back. Usually, again, being cheap, I buy the stuff that doesn't have the self-adhesive, and I just got some spray adhesive. And I just set it out, spray it, let it set for a little bit until it tacks up, and then take this thing and just dunk on it. Stick it on here and then get your skew. Just get it spinning and just touch it with your skew on the inside and outside, and you cut the edges right off. And that's how I make them. I do true this up with a skew and make sure that that thing is perfectly straight and level. I haven't had any problem with it moving using the hard maple. Maybe I've just been lucky, but you know, I guess I can turn this thing on.
Hey, Bob,
Hey,
do you seal the hard maple?
nope.
I've had problem not doing that.
Now I just turned it and glued it and
I've
used
had
it
problem with the vacuum not being as good as it could be.
like they're on the backside.
On any, usually around the rim, coming
really?
out the, yeah.
I just filled it full. I used 5-minute epoxy. I didn't nothing
Well,
exotic.
I mean, it glues, but the vacuum pulls through the wood somehow.
Oh, I have it on the hard maple. Now I'm fairly new at the wood turning world, and I made one out of oak. That didn't work. It's got open pores. Yeah, that thing leaked like a sieve. That wasn't a good choice at all. The hard maple, I didn't match the grain. Maybe that's why. But I haven't had any trouble with these leaking. I can get a full vacuum with it. And
I've used the plywood that has the, what it calls about 40 grains, or the real tight.
like Baltic birch.
Multi-birch. Yeah, I've used multi-birch, laminated it up, and then turned it.
I thought about that. I also thought about the plywood that's got the MDF center in it. I thought that might work. But I had this time, it's what I've used, and it hasn't moved. So until I have a problem, you know, I'm gonna stick with this. I can't make this lathe turn on. I'm not smart enough to run the lathe.
Something I did with a couple of mine, I created.
There we go. Anyway, and the brain trust that is in here is amazing on all this stuff. If anybody has other ideas, I'd love to hear it. But this has been what I've been using for, I don't know, 5 years, 4 years, however long I've been turning. We're still babies in this world, but this has worked really well for us. I can get him back off of there.
So Bob, can you show us how you line up that bowl?
Yeah. Remember what I was doing? Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
To turn it around several different ways. The easiest way to do it,
always done.
for me, is I use a Nova Live Center, and then I have this little guy here, which fits in my Live Center, which has the same thread as the spindle. So it's 1/4 by, and I just stick it in here, take my chuck, screw it on here, leave my bowl chucked up, of course, and that way everything's good and true. And then I can just bring this up, if I can run this here big fancy lathe. And it'll just, okay. Now you can do several things. You can also, if you got something that's delicate with a setup like this, you can have a piece and have a chuck on both sides, which I've used before on different things. That's really stable right there. If you're doing something you don't want it to move, it'll stay right there forever. That, you know that this is true. Find my end, where have my end at? Excellent. gotta have a way to get our vacuum to our lathe. This little guy here, what they call a vacuum adapter. This piece here. I made my own originally using a lamp post. Like if you're making a lamp at home. I made this one. It's what I use with my grizzly lathe all the time. It just slides up through and fastens in. When I got my Powermatic, Roger gave me this. Bless him.
Excuse me.
This thing's
Say that wrong.
yeah. This thing's the pussycats meow. It just slides in a hole in the end of your headstock. Now I kind of got stuff scattered around here a little bit. But this is how much vacuum we have. With that pulled, whoops. I can come over here and just loosen my chuck and back this out of the way. And that baby's on there. That thing's ready to be used. And it's turning true. That's the easiest way for me to set them up. If you don't have this, that little adapter is like $48, which really hurt my feelings, because there's at least $5 of material there. If you don't have that, and you need to set this thing up, I'm going to turn my vacuum down to about 5 pounds, which you do just by letting some of it out. And just push this thing off center a little bit. Okay? So we're trying to set it up, and this is what we're dealing with. The easiest way to get it straight is take your tailstock, or your tool rest, and bring it right over at the edge. I'll do that here. Bring it up close where you got something you can reference, where it won't hit it. And then turn it by hand, and you can tell where you're at. And you can slowly pull that thing in, because you can see how far off you are. Where if you're just trying to do it randomly, it's really difficult to do. It takes a little bit, but you'd be surprised how active you can get it by doing that. Now normally, obviously I have my thing right here by my leg so I don't have to run back and forth. But that's way simpler than, I think I need to go a little here, a little there, or something. It gives you a real solid point of reference. I bought that till I was watching some YouTube vid. I'm like, the light bulb, you know, the old thing. That really works well. This is the only way to go if you can afford it. That really works. There's also one of these little adapters for the one-way chuck too. So if you have a one-way chuck, you can get one of the adapters to do the very same thing with it. I don't have one of those. I had this first, so this is the one that I have. I'll leave that if anybody wants to come. You'd be surprised how strong that is on there.
Show them how hard it is to try to pull.
Try to pull that off of there. You can get them off, but you got to work at it.
Forever.
You know, it doesn't.
Where'd you get your vacuum?
The vacuum chuck comes from, or the vacuum pump. This one is from the Frugal Vacuum Guy.
That's where I got mine. First grade.
Yeah, it's where I got my first one. This one was actually bought for Jackie, so that she'd have one for her lathe, and so I had to have two. And this one is way quieter. That little dude's awesome how quiet it is. But that's the Frugal Vacuum Guy. It costs, I think they're about $225 for that pump now, right in that ballpark. He retired and then unretired and came back, and so I bought this months ago, and they've been on back order for a long time, so I got a better buy on it. Once again, I'm kind of a cheap SOB, and but that's I would recommend talking to him. I think gas is kind of like the industry standard. If everybody loves a gas pump, they're a vane pump, aren't they, Dennis? Instead of a piston.
I don't know, I've got one, I don't know how it works.
Yeah, I think it's a vane pump. This is an oil piston.
Gas and Thomas both make what they call the wobble pumps. They're both piston pumps.
Piston wobble pumps. Yeah.
Yeah,
My
that's-
my other one is piston wobble pump.
That's what I use. I use a Thomas.
That's impressive.
Yeah, you can pop them off if you get a catch or, you know, you get silly. And if you're doing a small one, especially the amount of pressure that is created is exponentially larger as they get bigger. It's amazing how fast it builds. I saw one way sells one that's 12 inches. Man, you'd want to be careful if you had a very thin bowl. It'd just suck the bottom right out of the bowl. That big.
That is happening.
Yeah. The other thing you got to be really careful about is don't make a funnel. If you cut through the bottom, it don't hang on no more. That's never happened to me yet. I use the word yet. But that's the one thing I'm really cautious about, is to make sure that I don't cut through the bottom when I'm using the vacuum, because that would turn it loose. If you get a cat, still pop off, but to me, it's just the cat's way to turn them around.
You know, what I do whenever I turn that around, I go ahead and bring tailstock up to it. Like say you're gonna take that tenon off this,
Mhm.
I just, for sake of advantage, I bring the tailstock up to it.
I wonder if I don't think I brought it. I did this Live Center system. It's just got a little baby Morse tooth taper in it.
Yeah.
And I took some of that, what is it, HB, what's that white plastic? High distance, like cutting boards are made out of it. HBM, UHMW, there you go. Yeah, I bought a 3/4 inch round bar of that. And I just cut several, what I call them, just a soft center that fit in here. And that's what I do. Because it doesn't have to hook on anything, I just bring it up and hits it, doesn't leave a mark.
Just have pressure.
Yeah, it's just pressure on it.
You put it down about the size of a quarter, whatever, then you take it away, and then you're only working with like a quarter, maybe an inch diameter.
Yeah, but that one I actually leave it on until I get right down
Yeah.
to the nitty gritty before I take it away. But that's usually what I do, is I use that and then I use Live Center to push against it. I normally don't put the chuck back on it. I'll just use that dead center in this. I use this setup a lot. It's kind of surprised me how much I actually use that. It's handy to have, to be able to stick it in your tailstock and have your tailstock spin with your headstock. Anytime you want to make sure something doesn't come loose and you don't want to mark it, that plastic stuff is perfect for it. You can make it out of wood too. I just like the plastic because it's more.
If you take your point out of your one way, slide it up there just like that.
Yeah, you could. And like on this, it doesn't matter.
It won't mark it.
Yeah, on this it doesn't matter because we don't worry about marking, this glue
Yeah.
block. The reason I like the plastic is because I can put how much pressure I want to on it and it won't mark it.
Yeah.
And wood would work just the same. I just had the plastic, or I bought the plastic. I thought it was the thing to do, and I've had good luck with it. So, like I say, everybody's got a different idea of how to do the same thing. But let's see, what else have I got here? My little bag of goodies. There's this guy, which is essentially the same thing as this, except it's not live. I bought this before I got one of these. This is really inexpensive. It just sticks in here. Same general concept. You just screw your chuck on it, but this does not turn. So you put your bowl on it, you just hold it up to it, turn your vacuum on, then back it away. I like the one that spins better, because if you're out of center or anything at all, it'll screw it up, and then I use it a lot to put pressure on it. Yes, sir.
Where'd you get that?
This?
No, the other one. It's finished.
It's just a Nova Life Center. Hell, I don't remember. I've had it
The
for years.
threaded piece,
Well,
You mean the whole center, the whole
you
thing?
talking about the threaded piece that holds the chuck in?
well,
You talking about this little guy? Or this
No,
guy?
this one.
This is a Nova Life
Oh,
Center.
okay.
That's just your standard Nova Life Center. Packard,
No, let's see the other end of it.
this one?
I see what you did
This has
now.
got,
Now I see what you did. Okay.
see, this has got a whole bunch of different tips that go in it.
Yep.
This is a number 2 Morse taper, just a little short one.
Okay, I'm with you. now.
It comes with a, I think they're about $130 now for this, and it comes with a multitude of different tips. And then I made the soft one out of the plastic,
Okay.
and I bought this separate that goes with it.
Where'd you get that, Bob? The threads on the top?
This part?
Yeah.
I think Packard, but anybody that sells the Nova Center will have it.
I got one of those for my one-way from Woodcraft.
From Woodcraft? Yeah.
But it was for my one-way.
Right. Yeah, and one way makes the same thing. You do the very same thing
You
with
know,
it.
You thread it in, you thread it on the threads one way.
Yep.
I got one just like that one, Bob, in your left hand, but I bought mine from Home Depot.
Home Depot.
Yeah. Actually, that's a good point. Home Depot is worth looking at. I've looked for, and Home Depot sells Nova, so you could get all this stuff there. It's surprising how often Home Depot is cheaper than everybody else.
That's exactly right, and free shipping.
Yeah, I've discovered that. I bought several different items for my,
There goes the ball.
Catch the ball, yeah.
well, you'll stay there for a while.
Not long.
Yeah, mine
Famous
too.
last words.
Thank you, gentlemen. Anyway, the deal on Home Depot is a good point because they sell the same stuff, and a lot of times they're cheaper than all of the wood suppliers. And I bought several Nova items and different things from Home Depot. I always check them to see if they have it, because usually they're a few dollars cheaper than everybody else. Free shipping, they just send it to the store and I'm mosey by and pick it up. Something I would have never thought of is Home Depot for this stuff, but they sell all the Nova stuff, chucks and everything. Yeah, Home Depot. Yeah, go online, check it out.
That's right, yeah, I didn't know that.
Yeah, you wouldn't think Home Depot, would you? Just not the first thing you'd think of.
Yeah.
Some of the stuff,
You plumbed it all together?
yeah, that's where I'm going now. Good girl. Some of the stuff, you start looking for this hose, and it's just stupid expensive, right? Goofy stuff. Okay, this is 3/8 inch PVC air hose from Menards. 50 feet of it for $18. Works like a charm. It's flexible, doesn't get stiff, doesn't collapse. It kind of hurts your feeling to take a brand new air hose and take a knife to it, but yeah, Menards, $18 for 50 feet, and you're in business for life. You know. That's a barb fitting. I don't know if I can get this off of here.
No, that's okay.
You got that from Roger? Oh. You got that? Roger didn't give me one of those.
I did get from Roger. Yeah.
Roger gave that to you?
He gave it to me. It didn't work,
He didn't give me.
but I introduced it to the shop and pressed all the bearings out of it and put new bearings in it and new O-rings and stuff. Things just worked like a charm. Rubber Chucky. Rubber Chucky, and I never really, I knew about Rubber Chucky, but I never spent any time on their site looking at stuff. They have a whole selection of these. All the way down to, like for the company lathe, or club lathe, with a 3/8 hole, you can buy them for it. And it's $100 for that little guy.
Is it really?
It is, which made me get creative. We'll see if I'm successful. I'm gonna try to make one. I'm gonna try to use brass for these parts, and I'm gonna make the center out of it out of Osage orange. Mainly because I priced brass and they wanted, what was it, $75 for a chunk of brass? And I'm like, Osage orange is hard enough to make your tools chisel. You know, it's harder than the hubs of shucky darn. So I'm thinking Osage orange might work. So I'm gonna try to make one out of using Osage orange for the body and then brass for the two ends. We'll see if I can get true enough with hand tools to make a pressed together fit. It's going to be a challenge, but I'm going to give it a go. We'll see if I can build one by hand. Unless they're not.
Could you thread
That's
it?
tiring.
Huh?
Could you thread it instead of pressing it in?
Well, that's where the bearings go.
Oh, that's right, okay.
There's a couple of different ways to go about it. I can glue them in and everything.
Would rotate, yeah.
Ideally, it would be best if it's a press fit.
Yeah.
I could do it other ways that just make it bigger. I'm going to try to make it, it's the next great challenge. You know how that works. I'm gonna see if I can make one by hand. Has anybody ever made one of these on themselves?
Kinda.
Huh?
I did.
And
It can wobble a little.
does
It's
it?
okay.
Now this one, I made this. Okay, this one, kind of the same concept. What I did on this one is a barb fitting, which is, you know, what the hose is hooked on here. I'm not man enough to get this thing apart. I can't get it apart at all. But y'all know what a barb fitting is, right? I just put that son of a gun in my lathe and chucked it up and got after it with a file and turned it down smooth and got it down to where it was the right size and ordered a couple bearings and glued it in here. Not this one, but on this one. And it's just one of those fittings, and the bearings are glued inside of this. This was earlier in my game again. This is oak, which wasn't the best choice again because of the oak and open pores. But it works like a charm. And
Put some epoxy all around it.
I did. This one's epoxied in. That's how this one's
Not
in there.
around the oak.
Oh, to make it seal it up?
Yeah, it's sealed up.
Yeah, it would. It actually worked well enough. I used this for years. This end is a little Morse taper too. It's a piece of cherry. Just on this end. Do you want me to show you how that works? Is anybody interested in how this thing actually goes in your lathe?
Sure.
Sure.
Sure. Okay.
I've done
If
that.
I can get this guy off. It won't be the right length because obviously this is a different lathe. But the way it works is, and I got a little mount so it hangs right on me. This is a lamp post. Again, you go to Home Depot, you're making lamps, just buy a lamp rod and you just slide it through your headstock. Oh, it didn't come all the way through. This end would slide on it, put the nut on it, and it clamps it right there. And then you're in business. I hadn't seen this style when I did this. And I was like, how do I get vacuum through there? And that was what I came up with. Works really good. Now this one's turned with some mark that fit the hand wheel on my Grizzly lathe, so it holds it nice and tight and everything. But that works. And that is, what have I got in that? $10? Maybe. This, I did put a ball valve on it, which was totally unnecessary. I didn't know when I was doing it, and I thought I might want to be able to control the pressure here. I've never ever used that. So there's no use spending money to put a ball valve there. But that works really well. This is just more convenient. And that's a really neat system. What did I do with my, there it is. Leave that here, I'd have to be home turning another one. An example, the bottom of this, which is a big old heavy bowl, was on the larger of the two vacuum chucks. That's cherry. And this, which is a little bowl. Contrast in size. Same thing. Both of them were turned with a vacuum chuck to turn them around. Kind of gives you an idea of how the flexibility of what you can do with it. From little small light stuff all the way up to what I would consider to be a pretty darn big, heavy, holy crap, that'll hurt if it comes off.
Now, have you necked one down to be able to get on the inside of that one?
This one here, I've got I went down to Home Depot and I bought a collection of pipes. Some of these are neat, that'll fit right straight on it, so like it would work on this one. It'll work on this one. I don't use this little guy very much at all because it doesn't have much holding pressure. It's so small. You want to be sure if you're using this, you're cutting towards the headstock. Don't come into the side, it'll pop it off. There's just not much holding on something that small. But like with this one, it would work on this one right here. And it stuck it right on there. That big bowl was turned with this one. I don't have a great big one, and they've held it good enough to do it with this. I've never had one pop off with this one. I have had other ones pop off. I did, my demo, or my deal was a square bowl, or a little platter that I brought for this time, and I popped it off. I got a catch and popped it off, and that little square bowl commenced to crawl up my arm. It got me right there, and there, and there, and there. as it went by. Spun out right up my arm. Which I thought was quite ironic, being so I was going to talk about vacuum chucks today. Which is a lesson, don't stand in front of it. Whatever you're turning, don't stand in the line of fire. Figure out where it's going to go if it comes off, and don't put your body there. Now, my arm was there, but the rest of me was out of the way. That's the first thing I've had pop off in a long, long time. Probably, I don't know, probably 6 months or more since I've had anything pop off. But I did get a royal screaming cat's hello, and it made it mad. It jumped off and spun up my arm, tore me up, laughed at me on the way by. Any other questions?
I'll just do a comment.
Yeah.
This had a tenon on the end of it, and I turned it down, made the shape, and it has a center hole here, put into a vacuum chuck, well, this way, because there was a center hole up here in the middle of the tenon, and I turned off the tenon in a vacuum chuck. All four of the tops are like that.
That brings up a good point. Again, for how to do the bottom, lining it up, when you do your tenon, make sure and leave the center point on your tenon. Where'd my bowl go? Here it is. Which this one doesn't have. But make sure and just leave a point in that. If you don't have anything else, you can turn it around and put the center of your live center in that center of that and push it up against it. That will line it up too. I'm terrible about turning that darn center, that hole off. One of the things I'm working at doing is making sure I leave it on there because it's, it's one of those why not deals. But that will line it up. This will line it up. This is, I think these are like $8 or something. These are really cheap. The one that turns obviously is more money, but it's really handy. The pump, you can get them used on eBay. Everybody that sells woodworking stuff is selling these pumps. And it's a classic case of you can spend however much money you want to. You can find them used for not a whole lot. I like the Frugal Vacuum guy. I think he sells really quality stuff and he stands behind it if you have any problems. But they're available every place. It's strictly what you forget your fancy. This, by the way, was an example of a very early effort to make one of these, trying to figure it out, and I did this and put this, I mounted it inside one of these, in here. And so then it went into the lathe this way, and I put my hose on it, which it worked too. I didn't like it as well. I didn't stay with this very long. This is epoxied on there, I can't get it off, I just haven't thrown it away yet. But that was an example of a process that I don't think worked all that well. I wouldn't suggest doing this. It works, and I've seen them buy well. In fact, Keith has got kind of an example of that with a hose. The new one that he brought so that we could see. Yeah. I had Keith brought in some, Bill brought in some. So thanks, and Roger. This I think is neat as hell. This is Keith's. It's got an O-ring for a seal. I would have never thought to use an O-ring. It's got flexibility a little bit. It'll move. The rest of it is the same general concept. He's got a faceplate on the bottom as opposed to threading the wood.
Actually made that one.
Yeah, it looks like you made that one by hand. Yeah. Do you, on the one with the metal, do you use a rubber here to seal against? It's got something on it. I figured that if I had a metal, I'd have to use
Well, between the metal and the wood.
between the nut and here.
I think I use super glue around between the metal and the wood.
Okay. What about between the nut and the headstock, the end of the
No,
spindle?
I have not.
Okay. I was thinking about it, and I thought you'd probably want to have one of those. They make them little gaskets for 10 cents so that your chuck don't get stuck. And I bet one of those would work to seal it up. This is kind of the same general concept. where the tube goes through, you know, it mounts this way. And how do you hook onto this end of it?
The bearing's actually, the bearing on this one is actually inside the chuck.
It's a, yeah, that, and that's,
That tube does not move, and you just, any way to get, slip a hose or something on it.
yeah, that was my concept with this one. Is it was inside the chuck. The bearing was inside the chuck. This is Harbor Freight. Their blow nozzles, the extended blow nozzles are super, super cheap. Just bought one of those and cut the nozzles, cut the rod off where I got the rod at.
I kinda like it.
You like this one?
I actually took them both out when I got home, because I didn't think I'd like that bearing in that, like that. But I used this one like that, and actually I kinda like it.
Well, how come?
Just, I think it works just as easy as my old method. My old method is a one-way, that screws onto the end of the tailstock.
Oh, that actually screws on? Okay.
Uh-huh.
The kind of the point is, there is absolutely no limit to the creativity of how to do this. Rogers, he doesn't even have a seal on it. He's got them tapped, and this is where it hooks the wood. It's just wood.
Now, I will use some of that funny foam.
You put foam on them? Okay, you just don't have foam on them right now?
That's right, I don't glue them on.
Oh, you just think to put a piece up there? Okay. I was amazed that worked. I'm like, that's really impressive.
Excuse, do you have any Frugal chucks here?
I don't.
Okay, because I bought mine with his chucks,
Mm-hmm.
and it's the plastic on wood with the foam over the top.
Okay, so it's kind of the same
And a
general
tube
concept.
going out the back. You just plug the tube from the Frugal pump onto the tube that comes through the lathe.
So his is like
Right,
Pete's is there?
right.
The bearing is actually in the chuck itself?
Yes.
Okay.
One other thing, the part that screws on the lathe,
Mhm.
that one is made out of Trex. They use Trex for decks.
Oh, for decking?
That's good. That's really good material. Yeah.
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
The big plastic one of mine, actually that's MDF board, but it moved a little bit.
Did it?
It wasn't supposed to move, but it will fun.
I was kind of surprised when everybody talked about it moving, because I haven't had that happen. Probably just lucky. I don't have any claim to skill or anything, it just happened.
We use different kind of wood to start with, and also that I got one or two in there that actually got plastic boards. Okay, instead of MDF.
Oh, good.
And that came from.
Yeah, that's plastic.
Yeah, that came from like you said, Home Depot or
Mhm.
something like that.
That's worked good?
Yeah, that's stable,
Yep.
that's stable.
I think the O-rings is just brilliant. Yeah, it's a great idea.
And you can turn the O-rings. If they're not quite straight for you, when you put it on there, you can actually turn the O-ring.
And true it up?
Yeah, true it up.
What do you use, what's the glue the O-ring on?
Huh?
What do you use to glue the O-ring on?
Super glue. Yeah.
I think the O-ring idea is really a unique
I
idea.
could do that.
I hadn't thought about it at all. It's fun how much I've learned just trying to get ready to do this.
So when you bought that plastic key,
Yeah.
what did you go looking for? What's the application?
No, that's just,
That's PVC pipe.
yeah, like, fence material. You know, like the plastic boards that make fence out of.
You mean
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, that's all it is.
yeah, we made a dry kiln here just recently, and I made some little vents on it, and I bought a board of this stuff for that because it won't ever rot. Anybody got any questions at this point? I'm kind of running out of steam.
Have you ever is there any marring or anything, you can put a finished piece on there? and
You
cut
can
back
get,
in?
was it you telling me that you can get the white mark?
You can get the walnuts particularly bad if you leave it on there too long. It'll pull that dust through. Any of you that run a vacuum, you know you've got a little filter on your pump most likely.
Yeah, I got
If
one.
you look in that little filter, there's dust in it. Well, that's coming from the inside of that bowl, from the outside. Walnut's really bad about showing a white mark. Maple, no, probably not. But it has to be somewhat thin, I mean a thicker piece, but you can get that. One of the ways to avoid it is put a sanding sealer on it first. And or I've used masking tape. and take the inside of it and then vacuum against the masking tape. And it worked just fine. Also, if you're losing a lot of vacuum, and you're not working in an area on the back side, you can put masking tape on that and that'll help seal a little bit better.
And I think another solution for that might be that stuff that you use all the time, Dennis, that clear plastic stuff.
Yeah.
Put that on there, that protects it.
Yeah.
I've had to wrap bowls before.
Yeah, but that'd be harder.
Needing this layer of that.
Yeah.
It'd be a little bit harder to do.
Outside, just so it would hold it back. And then a lot of times after I would put that on there, then I would cover it with duct tape, because the duct tape was a little bit more strong. And you're wrapping the duct tape to the plastic and not getting on the wood.
One thing we've done too, and I don't know how good this is on the pump, if we've got a piece and it's leaking and you can obviously tell it's leaking through the wood, just take some sanding sealer. Even when the pump's on it, you put that on there and you see the vacuum it just climbs up. It seals it instantly. It does pull it through.
Use what?
Sanding sealer.
Okay.
Where's my other chuck at? One of them's really dirty. This, you can see the stuff inside. That it's all dirty in there. That's what that is. That sanding sealer for me doing that. It's pulled it through the wood. So I'm sure some of it went through the pump, but apparently didn't hurt it any. It's still humming along. I don't know if it'd be a good idea. I do have a filter. You can see in my little demo thing here, I've got a filter mounted. Make sure, and all that is a clear fuel filter from Napa. For just a basic little fuel filter. The idea is not to filter soup stuff, is to keep the sawdust out of your pump. And I trust it to keep this stuff out of my pump too. I've had it, I've never changed it, the one I have at home. I don't know if I need to, but I still got good vacuum and I've had it for 4 years maybe. It works like a charm, but make sure you have to put a filter on there, absolutely, because it will get a certain amount of sawdust. And that, it's kind of fun to do because you're leaking and you just smear it on there and you just see the vacuum climb. It seals up the pores incredibly quickly. We also, probably the smart thing is to put it on with it, let it dry. I'm pretty sure that'd be the smart thing to do. But I'm Bob, so things happen. I can't remember what we were working on when we did that. We had to seal it up right then, and I just smeared it around there, and I was amazed how it worked instantly on the fly. We went and bought some of that Saran Wrap, and I bet that would work instantly. Same thing, just anything to block the blockage of it up. But it's surprising how strong that hold is. That big one, I don't know if I could have pulled a bowl off of it, and it's not that much bigger than the other one, but it really holds tight. I thought about making a bigger one, but I just haven't found the need. It seems to work good enough, if I can turn a bowl that big on it, I really don't think I need to go any further.
So on the small pieces that you were talking about, you needed more surface area to get a good suction, right?
Yeah, the less surface area you have, the less
I'm
holding.
thinking of a mini lathe, if you're trying to use one on it,
Well,
can you increase the vacuum pressure to hold it?
see this, no. Your vacuum pressure, you're only going to get so much. What, at this altitude, we're right around 30 and a half, something like that, and that's total. So that's total vacuum, okay? You're not going to get any more than that. And it's essentially you're moving the pressure, it's the atmospheric pressure push on it, what's holding it on there. That's what's doing it. So when you got one this size, that's the only active area you got. We were turning something, it was a cup or something. It was exactly this diameter. And we stuck it on there and it stuck out about that far. And we were just real cautious and didn't put any pressure this way on it, turned towards the headstock. And we were able to finish the bottom of it with it stuck on the end of this thing, which kind of surprised me. I didn't know if I'd be able to, but it did. And it's just, you just got a common sense. You know that this isn't going to hold near as good as this, just because you just don't have as much surface area. The ironic thing is it's not linear. This is many, many, many times stronger than this. As you go smaller, I was going to originally try to find a smaller one than this, and I was like, no. It'd be a total waste because I don't think it would ever hold anything. It's fun. Now I'm a guy that just likes to try to figure out how to do it instead of just running to the store and buy it. Bill's chucks here, I'm sure are vastly superior. I'd love to have one or two of them. But I went this route, and so far, I haven't had a reason to spend any money to change it. That might change. But it's part of the fun is in figuring out how to make it, to me. I thought about putting it on one of these, but it's pretty basic on how to put a gasket on there. And you can go to Hobby Lobby and buy gasket material. That's easy to come up with. Just go ask for funky foam or any closed foam. It doesn't have to be that. It just has to be a closed foam. So some packing material, anything that's a closed foam. Yeah, for generally speaking, you don't want it to be very thick. You don't want it to have any give. But it needs to be soft enough to. I actually like this stuff. It's a little bit thicker, but it's real soft. And when you put something up against it, when you turn it on, it goes boom, right tight against the top of this. You can see it, pull it in tight against the edge of this cup. And it holds really good. This is the stuff from Hobby Lobby that has the self-adhesive back on it. It's just a tiny bit thinner than the stuff that doesn't, or thicker, I mean, than the stuff that doesn't. And I like it a little bit better, but I wouldn't want anything any thicker than this. Anything else?
Great job, Bob.